Hi, everyone. Welcome inside the UNI-Dome for the Bison postgame show presented by Gate City Bake. Kyle Emanuel, Mike McFeely. I'm Logan Campbell. So the Bison cap off the regular season with a 48-27 win over Northern Iowa, finishing the season 8-3, right where we expected them to finish, Mike.
First question, are you okay? I heard you got taken out by an old first down stick man or something.
It only took 3 years for me to finally get hit by someone and get knocked over, but we're good.
It's been a tough day for you. James Madison lost. You got run over by a first down guy.
I took the fall for him. Someone had to help him out, so I decided to be that. Okay? We bounced up when we were good to go, just like NDSU did this season.
To answer your nice segue. To answer your question, after all the stuff that went on this year with the blowout loss at UND, losing to South Dakota early on unexpectedly, I think. Getting beat soundly by South Dakota State, the message board, social media asking for Matt Entz to be burned at the stake and run out of town on a pickup truck. At the end of the regular season, NDSU ends up 8-3, which is about where we thought they would start. At the start of the year, we thought they would be. And when the playoff committee meets tonight and announces the field tomorrow, NDSU could be a seed. They could be a 7th or 8th seed and get a first-round bye, and then everything's going to be just fine. I mean, when they needed to play well at the end of the year against two ranked teams, they played their best football of the year. Still some things defensively that they, kind of got beat on today, but they're 8-3. They could be a seed, and if not, they're going to get a home playoff game. Everything is okay, kind of, in Bison world.
FCS selection show happening tomorrow. Dom Izzo and what is his name? Jeff Kolpak. Too many names to remember today. I think I might have a concussion. Anyways, Jeff Kolpak, they will have a breakdown of what they think the playoff picture will look like. You should check that out on Inforum.com. But talking about today's game, a big win. We saw them, we saw glimpses of it last week, the second half performance, and said it was the most complete. They were able to carry that over. We talked a lot about it during the pregame show. How are they able to do that today?
Yeah, that was the million-dollar question leading to this week. How do you bottle up what you saw last week against Southern Illinois, moving the ball against one of the best defenses in the Valley, and how do you do it again today? And look, there's a million things you can go into and how you do that, but first of all, I think it goes back to confidence, right? I think all of a sudden, this team flipped a switch last week, and I don't know what it is. There's no scientific answer to that, but confidence plays such a huge role, and I think they found it last week, and all of a sudden things clicked a little bit, and they're like, okay, yeah, we really are a good football team. Like you said, Logan, there's been moments throughout this year, but it just hasn't been consistent enough, and now we've seen it, like Mike mentioned, when you needed it. If you're NDSU, all these questions, everything that went on this year, you needed it these last two, and maybe not even just wins, but you need to do it convincingly if you wanted to get that seed. That's exactly what they did, and it's impressive. This is not an easy place to play. Like we've talked about that a million times, and especially I thought impressive because Northern Iowa was coming off a performance that was awful against Missouri State, and I thought they would bounce back in a big way. And I think they were better offensively. It was the 4 interceptions for Theo Day, but for them to move the ball against a pretty good defense, I thought for Northern Iowa, especially up front. Impressive to say the least, especially to do it here in the UNI-Dome.
NDSU's offense. I'm sorry, Logan.
No, go ahead.
Cam Miller, can we just stop for a second?
Yeah.
And Cam Miller has been so good this year. It's just
phenomenal.
There were questions about him after last season. Was he the guy? And especially after that a bad performance against Incarnate Word, throwing the ball, and they didn't win the national championship, and he can't beat South Dakota State. He's an all-conference quarterback. Mark Gronowski from SDSU might get the first team, but Cam Miller deserves the second team, or maybe more. He's done everything they've asked him to do this year. And he avoided pressure today a couple of times and made plays. He threw the ball, especially in the first half. I think he started 11 for 12. Just makes, and if he needs to, he can run. He's kind of become we were wondering who the dude was going to be before the year. I think he kind of became the dude for NDSU's offense.
It is without a doubt Cam Miller. I was going to ask you, what did you notice that flipped a switch and was able to allow him to take total control of this offense?
I don't know. He's been there. I think, like Raja Nelson's emergence, what happened there?
Where did he come from?
It's like,
seriously.
He had 3 catches in his career before the last 2 games, and now he's like the best receiver on the field. And Eli Green's a young guy that I think everybody's liked all along, but he's emerged. He had the 4th down catch for the touchdown on NDSU's first possession, but he's a guy who can go up and get a 50-50 ball, even though he's not the biggest guy. And then Zach Mathis is sort of the consistent veteran, but they've just found a couple of playmakers in the passing game, and they're not the same NDSU offense. They don't run the ball 50 times a game, but it's working, and they're doing what they got to do.
And to me, Logan, sorry to cut you off one more time.
When
I talk about Cam Miller, look, it's the precision, it's the timing, getting the ball out. But to me, where you kind of separate yourself as a quarterback is when things break down, when the play is not pretty, when it's not clean, guys aren't open, there's pressure in your face. Well, what do? Can you find a way to, even if it's just an incomplete pass, or can you find a way to scramble, which he's done so many times this year. I don't know how many times we break it down on the broadcast. It's like, okay, they're covered downfield, but yet Cam Miller finds a way. And not only does he scramble, it's not like he's getting 3 or 4 yards. I mean, 3rd and 19 today, and he scrambles for 21. I mean, it's just I don't know how he does it, but you're right. I mean, if you talk about a guy who's made the biggest leap from last year to this year, I think you got to start right there with number 7.
But then, just one more thing on Cam is that the touchdown pass to Raja at this end of the field where Raja was cutting across and then got in, Cam had to make one little sidestep and kind of ducked his shoulder and ducked under a rushing defender, and that gave him just enough time to find Raja. And that's a play, not to pick on Theo Day, but Theo Day is not going to make that play. He's going to get hit or get sacked, and Cam Miller just kind of ducks his shoulder, keeps his head up, finds Raja, and it's a touchdown. Just huge play.
Well, his vision, awareness, and the way he's able to spread the ball is really what sets him apart. I want to talk about defense with you. Lots of turnovers today, which the Bison have been wanting to have. Oscar Benson had a huge day.
Yeah, and that was the difference, right? Because UNI got their yards. I mean, like I said, you look at back last week against Missouri State, they couldn't do anything. I mean, Theo Day at one point was 5 for 15, 30 yards in the second half. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They got their yards. I think there's going to be some things you still want to clean up if you're NDSU defensively, specifically on the ground, and maybe some things in the secondary as well. But when you're opportunistic, like at the end of the day, you get 4 turnovers, you're doing something right. And I thought the secondary did a good job. I mean, Cole Wisniewski, I don't even know what you said. I just kind of threw my hands up.
That was fun
I'm up at the booth just like, I don't know what to say. I mean, that was just phenomenal. He baited him into the throw. Oscar Benson did a nice job. He's underneath coverage and then just kind of drops off and he gets the interception. The pressure was consistent. I thought that was good. That's something that you can take away. It was, for the most part, decent in the secondary. Yeah, they gave up some yards, and there'll be some things to clean up there, but you find a way to get 4 turnovers in a game.
I think they had like 6 sacks, too, though.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
They had a ton of sacks. I mean, Theo Day took a pounding
And it wasn't just the sacks either. It was, I always talk about this. Everyone loves sack numbers, and I get that, but can you affect the quarterback? Can you pressure him? Can you make him move? And a guy's a little bit of a statue. I thought they did that pretty well consistently throughout the day as well.
People have been hard on the defensive line all season long. How have they been able to turn it around during these last 2 games?
I don't know. That'd be a question to ask Kyle.
Right,
he actually played the game, and he was a defensive lineman, as a matter of fact. It's pretty good trivia there.
It starts with getting pressure with 4, right? And it's not a simple answer, but one of the things is, can you get a guy that can win one-on-ones, right? I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to. Can you get a push on the inside so that there's not lanes? Can you get a guy on the edge who's winning consistently? And we've seen that with Jake Cab, with Dylan Hendricks. Talk about Dylan Hendricks. I think that was a guy, I mean, since that UND game, I think he's just got better and better. And that's what it just comes down to. It can almost be that simple. Can you get a guy that can win consistently on the edge? And again, it doesn't have to be the sacks, but can you get a guy that at least makes a quarterback uncomfortable? And I think that's what these guys have done in these last couple games.
So playoffs officially start next week. Where does NDSU go from here, Mike?
I think they deserve a seed. Call me a homer, call me biased, but I think with the way they've dominated these last 2 games against ranked opponents, by the way, everybody was high in Southern Illinois. 2 weeks ago they were going to be a load in the playoffs, and UNI whooped UND, and everybody thought they were on their way. They were the hottest team in FCS aside from South Dakota State a couple of weeks ago, and NDSU just thumped both of them. This game on the road in a tough place to play, with all the 8-3 teams out there, I think NDSU is a 7 or 8 seed, and nobody's going to want to play them. I mean, the Jackrabbits are confident. Jackrabbits probably have the better team. They do have the better team, but if you're another ranked team, do you want to see NDSU? I'm not sure you do at this point.
Probably not. What did you see that you are hoping to continue to see in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think I go to the defensive side. Obviously the turnovers, but consistent stops. And maybe today the consistent stops were the turnovers. If you go back against Southern Illinois, I thought too many times this year it's been a stop here and a stop way later on in the game. And you force the offense to kind of try and be perfect. Can you get some more 3-and-outs? Can you give your offense an offense that's clicking, to say the least? Can you give them as many opportunities as possible? And then offensively, I just still think you go back to some of the adjustments they made, right? Like weren't running the ball great, and then you stick in Cole Payton, we haven't seen a ton of, and he goes for 65 yards. So I think they've been great with some of those second half adjustments, but I agree with you, Mike. I don't think anyone wants to see this team. I think they should be a seed, especially some teams that are limping in. And you think about Montana State, who just got blown up by Montana. Are they still a seed? Furman was the lock 2 seed. They lose to a 1-win Wofford team.
1-18 or 1-9 team they lost to.
We'll see how it plays out. I'm clearly biased. Obviously, I've played at NDSU, but I mean, take that away, the way that they won these last 2 games, I think they're on the upward trajectory. Hard to leave them out of the 8 seed, but even if they're not, or 8 or 7 seed probably, but even if they're not seeded, like you said, no one wants to see this team right now.
2 of their losses are to the number 1 seed and likely
Probably
the number 3 seed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's not bad.
Not
And
bad.
UND will make the playoffs. So
Right,
their 3
so
losses
all
are to
three.
playoff teams.
Well, it's a good time to be peaking.
Yeah,
Right before
perfect.
playoffs.
Without a doubt.
So don't forget to check out Dom Izzo's and Jeff Kolpak's playoff show. That is also on Inforum.com. NDSU closes out the season 8-3 with an impressive win in the UNI-Dome over Northern Iowa. For Kyle Emanuel, Mike McFeely, I'm Logan Campbell. Thank you so much for watching the Bison postgame show presented by Gate City Bank.